Australians, oh, let's make a choice, for we're no longer free. Our government has let us down and failed our own country. The great Australian dream is for the lucky few, but Aussies know what it really means to be true blue. Lest we forget what's a fair go and make Australia fair. South, we just want to live and grow. Advance Australia fair.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Hope you are doing okay. Try and move my pointer out of the middle of my forehead. It gives you less to aim at. I hope you had a good weekend. Didn't get carried on with too wildly or outrageously in any way. There is a bit of wet weather around in some places, and it sounds to me like there might be a thunderstorm happening before the end of this show here. It's also been very hot in a lot of areas, a lot of areas. So a couple of things I want to bring your attention to straight away. Cass tonight is at Rowville. I guess if you're in Rowville now watching this, you're not likely to head down and catch her tonight at the hall she's at, along with the guys from Ainsley Bullion. But maybe you'd like to catch up tomorrow night. They're doing another road show tomorrow at Frankston, my place. I'll get it right and get it out eventually. So, yes, I think it's from about 6 tomorrow night. It's a gold coin donation at the door. And if you go through the factory entrance, if you like, off Thompson Street, not the front doors out on the Nepean Highway, go through the back doors. And you'll be able to catch up on the latest details with self-managed super funds. And, well, what I would personally say would be probably the best way to invest your money in a self-managed super fund, and that would be using bullion, precious metals, gold, silver, and other precious metals that Ainsley can give you a bit of an idea on. Platinum particularly, very useful. And if you're not like me in a position to be affording gold, but you can afford a little bit more than silver, then platinum's your baby. And the people from Ainsley will be able to help you out with that. There'll be more road shows coming up. In fact, I'm popping into Ainsley in Brisbane tomorrow morning and catching up with the guys there. We're talking about some shows in Queensland, going further north later in the year, and putting a few plans in place for that. So hopefully I'll trek along with those shows. It's always interesting, and be able to catch up with a few of you folks who've already taken the opportunity to involve yourself in an SMSF, thanks to Cass and the team at Freedom Financial Solutions. And you've probably wound up buying silver and gold from Ainsley as well. So if you didn't go in to collect all that and you just had it delivered, it might be nice to turn up to one of these shows and put a face to it. Something else that I haven't been talking about for a little while, and that's not because of anything bad, it's just simply I have been distracted with many other things, and that's X39. Now, the patches are working for me unbelievably well. I think I've told you the story about my knees I don't know how many times, but I'm looking forward to seeing a few more of your stories. Now, some of you will have been on the patches for 3 months or so by now, and I'm just wondering how that's going. I haven't heard from Kate in a while, so fingers crossed everything's all right with Kate. But she was going great guns last time we chatted, and I know that Tim and Corinne have spoken to her, and apparently all things seem to be going pretty well. What I thought I might try and do, as I'm going to be trekking around the countryside, there might be an opportunity to do some sort of X39 team catch-ups. So if you're part of the X39 team under me in what we're doing with with these patches. If you're using, doesn't matter if you're trying to sell them to other people or get other people involved in it. That is neither here nor there. If you've joined under me and you're using the patches, then as I travel around, I want to try and do some meetups, maybe lunches, because I know dinners can be difficult, especially if I'm doing a show at this time of night. I'd much rather sit down and have a dinner with you folks and talk about what's going on than have you sitting out there in front of me watching me talk about something else, really. So I figured the easiest way to do that might be, at least for folks in Brisbane initially, is to have a catch-up at the place that I call my second home when I need a venue. And that's my mate at Redland Bay Distillery, Steve and the crew there. Now, I'll have a talk with them and see whether or not they have, well, I know they do magnificent meals out of the food trucks. And when I say magnificent meals, I've only had 2 of them, but both of the ones that I had were stunning. So I was thinking maybe a lunch or an early evening, 4 o'clock onwards, kind of catch up. We can have a gin, because Steve's Distillery is renowned for its gin. It's also making vodka, I believe, since I was last there. So there might be a bit of that out of the big vats for you to check out. And if you've never been into a boutique distillery before, well, you'll get a bit of a good look at how it all works. It's quite fascinating and very clean. And maybe gin and vodka isn't your thing. Well, we'll try and time it so that the brewery next door is open as well. Yes, it's a very, very handy little factory area. So that is in Capalaba. I'll give Steve a call tomorrow and see if there are any days that are good for him and try and line that up sometime in the next couple of weeks. So if you're in Brisbane and would like to be part of that, send me an email, carl@vofhq.com, and just signal your interest. And that way I can email you back and keep you in the loop with what's going on and what date and time and associated other things with that, because I'd love to catch up with you all. It's just last few weeks have been very interesting, well, busy, interesting, shocking, interesting, childish, interesting, boring, interesting, but unfortunately it all has to get ploughed through. So this one has sort of slipped through the cracks a little bit, and I apologise to you ex-39ers. I know that Corinne and Tim are looking after you as I've handed on, I think, all but a couple of your emails to them to manage this side of thing for me. And trust me, you're in much better hands. They know what they're doing. I would only be following their direction at any rate. And I missed the meeting last night, but I will be in the next one. So that's a promise. What did I get up to today? Well, we had an interesting drive in the bus today. Laura and I went down to see my mum down on the Gold Coast. But prior to that, I had to take the bus in for an insurance assessment. Those of you who've been following along this journey would be aware that I had an awning problem. The awning came off the side of the vehicle while I was doing 100 Ks or 90 Ks along the Western Highway, about 2 kilometres short of the Bacchus Marsh exit. And at this point in time, just like to say, love you, Beck, from Truth Seekers, because she saved my ass on more than one occasion, but not because of the awning. The awning, as it turns out, blew out. Well, nobody really knows, but maybe it's 24 years old and the thing that was holding it just had enough of life or whatever. But the front portion of it blew out about, not quite a metre, but the wind caught it. And because the old awning was 24 years old, it was rather threadbare to begin with. And the wind at that speed just turned it into confetti, which is exactly what the truck driver following behind me said I was leaving all over the road. So it sort of fits. Anyway, that was November, I think, last year, and I was only able to get an assessment done today. I've been waiting, well, since I got back to get the assessment done today. So it turns out we're getting a new awning. Yip-yah-yoo-ha. A lot of dickhead drivers on the road today, I have to say. A lot of dickhead drivers. Here's a tip. If you see something large like the bus or a semi-trailer or, something large towing a trailer, and you're coming on a merging ramp, right, onto the highway where these buses traveling in the left lane, large vehicles traveling in the left lane are doing less, and I say less, than the 110 kilometers you aspire to do as a minimum as you race your way down the ramp. Can I give you a tip? Don't race up determined to get in the small hole between the large vehicle and the large vehicle in front of it. And when I say small hole, I mean not just large enough to fit your vehicle in, but large enough for you to stop before the vehicle in front puts its brakes on and you plow your ass through it. And then I send what's left of you through the back of your head when I hit you. The truck driver and I will both walk away. Trust me. I might be a bit stiff and sore, but the truck driver won't even feel it. God, there are people who have no idea how to merge. Just ease off. If you see a big vehicle in that left-hand lane you want to merge into, sure, if there's plenty of room in front of it, race up, speed up, get in front of it, go. But if not, here's the trick. Slow down, get in behind it, let it go past, and trust me, you will be able to go into the next lane beside it and pass instantly, without slowing down, without being a dickhead, without risking your life or the life of anybody else on the road you're trying to merge with. My God, merging. Anybody would think it's brain surgery. Seriously. Okay, so Aussie Sue, glad you're feeling better. Really am. Saw your posts over the weekend, and that's all great. Veronique, God, I love that name. Veronique. I missed your bit of news in the chat the other day, but one of the other members informed me of it. Bloody great news. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, I gather that it's all full knowledge now then. So you've had a scan of some kind and you are now all clear. So that is absolutely fantastic news. I'm so pleased for you, for your family, and for our team because, well, we need you. We need you all is the easiest way of talking about that, I think. Here's Rachel. Have I been to Specsavers yet? How's everyone coping with the solar energies and the full moons? Yes. Michelle, your daughter, I missed that bit too. Better find out why your daughter may not have survived, but I'm glad that she did because I saw your reply to all of that. How did all that start? Been to Specsavers. Yes, Rachel. So for those of you who've wondered why I haven't spent a lot of time in the chats over the last, let's call it a couple of weeks. It's probably been fractionally longer than that, but I'm doing the best that I can. My eyes have been playing up. As it turns out, I went to get an eye test last Wednesday, I think it was. It was originally planned for a week earlier, but I had to help my housemate out with a training video that was requiring to be made, and I had to stand in as a trainee while it was being made, so I had to cancel my appointment, moved it, that's where it went to. Anyway, gone and had my eyes tested last week. Yes, I need new glasses, just a matter of affording them. So I'm wearing my readers now, and it's my reading prescription that needs changing. So when I wear my other glasses, I don't know that any of you actually recognize that these glasses changed either. These are now not gold, they're a sort of a platinum kind of thing. Now, these are a multifocal lens, so when you see me tilting my head back or lifting my glasses up, it's down the bottom of the lens that is the thickest part of the magnification. Yes, kids, it'll happen to you when you get older too. And so when you see me do that, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to read what's going in there. And the chat goes pretty quick at my end, not just the one you're involved in. There's, I think, 4 chats combined in what I'm seeing and 2 more up here, which thankfully at the moment seem to be quite quiet. So if you guys are watching on the Cairns News channel or my Rumble channel, you can say hi there. I know there's a few people watching on both, so I've got those chats open and I'm desperate to try and keep an eye on them. So if you see me doing that, that's what I'm looking at. So new glasses required, and I struggle with these glasses on to read anything in the little screen on my little computer screen that I'm looking at here in that chat box. It's just a lot of fly scratchings until I do that. And then that looks a bit stupid, don't you think? So these ones meant to do the job for me. And look, they're not doing a bad job for me, but I did sit on them some time ago, and it wasn't Specsavers who straightened them for me, but it was another one. Anyway, I didn't go to Specsavers. I refused to go to Specsavers. I had a bad experience with Specsavers once, a really bad one, which I won't go into because they've probably improved their service. I know they sacked the person involved, but I've since found a nicer place and tremendous service. If you are in the Alex Hills, Capalaba, Cleveland, Redlands kind of area and you need glasses, email me and I will put you in touch with Grace. Grace is the consultant who's been helping me with my glasses, and these ones that I say you didn't notice the frame change of. The reason the frame was changed, you know that I was calling them, you can see the little blue thing on them, I was calling them my Dame Edna glasses. Part of the reason I was having such a hard time seeing the screen was because there is a coating on the lenses of these glasses, and it must be wedged somehow or whatever. Anyway, it was like really fine, crazy cracking all over those lenses. And when I was looking through it, I just thought maybe I'd needed to clean them better, get a fluid to clean them, get a softer cloth, whatever. Pretty disappointed that I've been able to scratch them somehow in this short time frame. It turns out I hadn't scratched them at all, but the film in between the outer cover and the inner cover was crazy cracking in both lenses. Thankfully, it turned out that the consultant, Grace, got exactly the same set of glasses, same frames, her prescription, but multifocal lenses. And when I asked her to clean mine, she came back and said, oh, they're all full of scratches. She took hers off and had a look at hers too, and they were all full of scratches. So replaced free of charge, just couldn't give me gold. And that's fine. I got this platinum thing, and they are bloody magnificent and haven't crazy cracked or done anything again. So obviously there was just something bad that happened in the batch there. But that may have contributed to me sort of sitting there and trying to see things when I just thought I was getting old and my eyes were getting worse and worse and worse by the day. So not entirely the chance. Yes, Denise, I am tired. I am bloody tired. You wouldn't think after a weekend I would be so tired, but at the moment I'm in the process of helping a few different people through a few things, which is away from, well, certainly the public view, but certainly away from what we're doing. That can be a bit taxing at times. There are a few other things going on at the moment. Vince has boxed me in. So we need to raise a bit of funds. I won't be getting any new glasses until we get a few more funds. We are planning on going north to far north Queensland, and Cairns News, God love them, come on board. And we are going to go and have some talks with some folks up in Cairns about doing a few shows for them up there, but they won't be Voice of Freedom shows. They'll be their shows. So that could be a rodeo. That could be a wheelbarrow race. It might be a horse race along a beach near a reef. It could be the celebrations at Cooktown. It could be any number or anything. We're talking with a few different areas of business at the moment with a view to going out and promoting Queensland businesses, and particularly regional businesses and regional events. So if you are part of a committee on a regional event or something that's big that happens in your town, and it's something that we can share. I don't think I can share your nudist festival if that's what you're having. And you wouldn't want me parading around there with that, trust me. Well, not without a towel. Probably live without a towel, just with a shirt. Yeah, we won't be doing that sort of thing. But events, and in Queensland, across Queensland, we have some of the best events ever. I don't care if you own a pub that has really good cane toad races every Tuesday night. We'll go along on a Tuesday night, have a bit of a show the cane toad races, have a bit of fun. There might be a few local acts who want to come out, play a bit of music they've written, or want to tell their story about how, well, for instance, what Glencore are planning on doing to the Great Artesian Basin is going to affect their lives. Now, we plan on spending some time in the Surat Basin, the area that will be, well, one of the areas that will be greatly affected by this Glencore decision to inject the Millmerran power station waste in the form of CO2 to freeze it using something called methanolamine, which doesn't sound terribly healthy. It's corrosive. It's all sorts of toxic. And they plan on freezing that CO2 with that and then injecting it into the Great Artesian Basin, not into an empty well that somebody's already dug up and taken all the value out of. Oh, no, straight into the Artesian Basin. Now, that's going to affect businesses. That's going to affect families, farmers, lives. Not just in that area. It's going to affect all of Australia, one way or another, directly or indirectly. They will poison what is currently the largest underground freshwater lake in the world. And it is bloody huge. Bloody huge. So, yeah, not good. I need to make an apology while I'm going through things. Now, last week, you may have heard me talk about the Gorgon project, which I was talking about with this injection of CO2. Now, the Gorgon project happens out of Western Australia, and I think I may have shown you something like that and said, this is the plant that's doing all that injecting shit. I was wrong. I did get an email, though. Thank you from Mike. Hope it finds you well. On your show recently, you spoke briefly about the Gorgon project, the carbon capture storage system, in which your show showed images of the Gorgon LNG site. Hear that? That's the liquid natural gas site. I didn't show you the CO2 injection site. I showed you and I'll show you the picture again, that one, or possibly even that one. That is an LNG injection site. A capture site, not a carbon injection site. So anyway, Mike here knows a fair bit about this. Showed some images of the Gorgon LNG site circa approximately 2012, and not the CSS injection sites, which are very small footprint size, each containing several small injection wells, monitoring wells, and 2 remote pressure management sites. I also mentioned the project cost $4 billion, which could be construed by the viewers as a total cost for the LNG site, as per the image shown. For my information and yours, dear viewer, the Gorgon LNG project is a joint venture between Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Shell, and the final investment decision, or the FID, was based on a $52 billion capital expenditure. However, due to weather impacts, union involvement, there's a surprise, time delays, and other cost blowouts, it came in at approximately $79 billion. He attached a current image, which I will show you, of the complete project layout and the photo completed of the LNG plant, which is that one that I showed you, the very large one. Thank you very much for spending time out there, Mike. 5 years, it says he worked for Chevron on the project. Everybody who worked on the project is very, very proud of it, and I don't doubt that for one moment. And I don't think you found a bad place to be doing it. That is the LNG site, folks. And these are the injection sites on Barrow Island. So you can see the size of the gas plant in the middle versus the CO2 injection sites, which are further in different parts of the island, obviously going down to different parts of the holes they've dug. Pardon me. So thank you for correcting me, Mike. I really do appreciate it. I don't claim to know everything, and I certainly don't know much about everything. I try and know a little bit about most things, and whatever piques my interest, I tend to go a little bit deeper into. I was certainly viewing the East Coast side of things with the Great Artesian Basin and not really considering what was going on in the West, but certainly a valuable project for you guys, and it doesn't seem like it's, injecting CO2 into anything we might potentially need in the future. unlike these bloody morons in Queensland who seem to think that, yeah, that's all right, let's go ahead and do that. I want you to remember, folks, this bloke, his name's Camillo. He's in Division 10 in the Sunshine Coast. He's running for Division 10 councillor. People on the Sunshine Coast, if you're in Division 10, you would do well to elect this man. He is a good man for your community, a bloody great man for your community. So please make sure you do it. I don't have a picture of Darren Bergworth, but you won't need one. Tonight, he's going to appear alongside Paul Murray and all the other candidates in the Dunkley by-election in Melbourne. Paul Murray Live is in Frankston in a secret location. There will not be a live audience, although there might be an invited one. But at this point in time, Darren rang me this afternoon and said that he, along with the other candidates, will be on the show for a Q&A. And I saw a video, which I haven't been able to drag across to this computer to play, but I will endeavour to do so because he'll be on for a chat tomorrow night. Today, out in front of one of the polling places open for pre-polling in Frankston, Channel 7 turned up, and they were doing interviews with various candidates, and they didn't seem to be walking up towards him. So he walked up towards them and did his interview with them, and got to say, pretty interesting interview. I don't know if Channel 7 Melbourne ran any of it tonight. You folks in Melbourne would be in a better place to know me if you actually watch any of the mainstream media bullshit news anymore. But up here, I don't see that, and it wouldn't have made big enough news to be spread around nationally. So it would only be Victorian viewers who might have an idea if Darren Bergworth was seen in the news tonight. I'll go back to the chat so I can see if you pop that in. But yeah, tonight, I think Paul Murray Live starts at 9 p.m. on Sky. So yeah, Paul Murray tonight. I would expect his last answer to be I would expect his last statement is going to be pretty strong. He will not be swearing, but Darren is fighting for a variety of things. But at the forefront, the only thing we, the people, need to remember is that Darren is fighting for us, we, the people. And he makes that very clear in this Channel 7 interview, which I will have downloaded across by the time we have a show tomorrow night. That is the plan, at any rate. Now, let me have a bit of a glance down here and see what's going on. Thank you, Alana. Sending all your prayers for Darren. The ABC did BS thing on the two-party, but refused to talk about any of the independents. Yeah, he confronted the ABC, I think, yesterday or the day before when Albo Sleazy was in town. Albo came in for a Saturday night party at the Pratts with Katy Perry. That was a Pratt Perry party. Say that 3 times fast. Then turned up in Frankston, somewhere down along the pier there for a while, I believe, with a whole bunch of people dressed in red, clearly so they could be found if anybody drowned them. And then he disappeared off into the nothingness that is the Australian taxpayer-funded Air Force jet that he gets to park his ass in and fly around the country. Had a pretty big party weekend. He did Tay on Friday and KK on Saturday and Frankston on Sunday. Hey, that's more a Queensland thing. The Victorians will be scratching their heads about that. Such a dork of a PM, mate. Red alert. I cannot disagree with that. Carl, did I get your email? Hang on, let me have a look at this. So popular regarding council on Gold Coast charged with murder that's running again. Yes, I did. For those of you that aren't aware, there is a councillor on the Gold Coast. He's the son of a long-time former councillor, Baildon, from memory, who is currently, I'm assuming, out on bail for murder. Murder of his stepfather. Now, he may not... Yeah, I'm pretty confident he would have to be out on bail. If he was inside and incarcerated, I don't think he would be allowed to run. However, he is a sitting councillor, and the Gold Coast Council have not, in what must be over a year since the alleged crime was committed, have not been able to change their rules or their standing orders or their corporate fiction enough to stand him down. And that will be entirely to do with the fact that he was elected by the people. Now, there is also, and I'm not going to talk about it because it is a court case, but at the time I recall reporting of the incident revolved around him strangling or putting into a chokehold his stepfather. Now, whether there had been long-term abuse in the relationship between those two, or maybe the stepmother and his mum, I don't know. That's pure speculation. But it wouldn't be the first time that somebody who's watched a bit of MMA too much, or WWE or WWF, and has thought they know how to pull a chokehold on someone, how to put a headlock on someone that'll, a sleeper hold, knock them out is what I'm trying to say. And they wind up applying a chokehold instead. And when the person goes to sleep, they think they've knocked them out, but they haven't. They've stopped them breathing. That could form part of this man's defense. I don't know. Counsel won't know either, I dare say, because the defense would be under no obligation to supply anything to counsel. What I don't understand is why counsel wouldn't have gone to its governing body or its legislative administration arm, and there is one, to come up with a motion to dismiss or declare vacant the seat due to whatever, the councillor's inability to work. Now, if he is on bail and he is not barred from council offices and is still doing council duties, then yes, I can see no lawful reason why he can't run, because in the eyes of the law, you are innocent until proven guilty, or at least that's the theory. Most of us work under it. Doesn't usually work out that way, particularly if they have a set against you. However, we are talking about a former mayor, a former well-loved mayor, who I feel, if he hasn't passed, is suffering from dementia. He did work until his 70s, I want to say. And the son may well have got that same seat. I don't know. I can't remember. But it does seem a little strange that somebody charged with murder, not manslaughter, I don't think. I believe he's been charged with murder, is allowed to still run again, considering that I can't remember the time, the date line on this, but I would say it's over a year since all this happened. It may not be, but I would say it's over a year, and it still hasn't been to court. So weird, strange, weird. And I will look into it, Apocalypse. I will look into it. In fact, I know someone I can talk to, and I'll be able to get pretty much the facts, ma'am, and nothing but the facts. Tom Tate isn't talking to me anymore, I don't think. He doesn't let me ring him. G'day, Solly. How are you, mate? Been in the veggie garden. Needs a bit of watering. Been a bit dry in your part of the world. It has been a little dry up here, but we're getting a bit of rain tonight by the look of it in the southeast corner. And I'm told that in Cairns, Mareeba area today, fairly wet up north. Cooktown, I think, is pretty wet at the moment. And as you would expect it to be at this time of year, it is called the wet for a bloody reason. So if you're suffering through the wet and can't get anything dry, then thinking of you, folks, thinking of you. And down in Victoria, if you are in the Dunkley area, please do not go to pre-polling. Steer clear of pre-polling and go and vote on the day. Darren is working very hard around the pre-polls at the moment. And I've got to say, folks, very encouraging, very, very encouraging. People are treating him not quite like a rock star, but more like somebody they want to elect. And he is speaking to many people who are unsure of which way they're going to vote when they're at the door on the way in, and he's getting their vote on the way out. So, well, hopefully while they were inside, and he's telling him about it on the way out. But there could be a blow up in the seat of Dunkley. Can you imagine the pain it would cause the Prime Minister, figuratively and literally? Because there will be a lot of pain for the Prime Minister if they lose Dunkley. By they, I mean Labor. So, I mean, it would take something of a small miracle or a bit of a swing. And from what Darren's telling me and from what others are telling me about the campaign down there, the seat of Dunkley is in the mood for a bit of a swing. A bit of a swing. So, folks, if you were thinking that your vote in this Dunkley by-election wasn't going to mean much, it might be the most important vote yet of your life, particularly if you place it for D. Bergwerf, independent for Dunkley. He's a good man. We need good people in that place in Canberra. Let's get him in there. God, wouldn't that be great? Anyway, we'll talk about him tomorrow night further as well. I will get on to the managed retreat as it's being referred to shortly. I just want to have a bit of a glance down here and see what's going on. Yeah, a lot of people are losing friends and family, unfortunately. We all know the reason why. And it is terribly sad. But unfortunately, you never know. Donovan, interesting thought. Got to admit, I was thinking the same thing. I was really wondering what kind of stupidity would allow this to happen. But then I remember Anastasia Palaszczuk, and I considered that, okay, that's reasonable to expect that level of stupidity out of her and the bunch of morons that are the ministers in charge of this horrendous friggin' decision. But there's a safeguard. The federal government. That's what I thought. There's a safeguard. Well, that safeguard is Tanya Plibersek. Do you trust Tanya Plibersek to do the right thing? Do you trust Labor senior, Labor, federal Labor I'm talking about here? Do you trust them to knock it on the head because common sense says so? I don't. If you do, then great. It might be a psyop, a distraction, and there are plenty of things, I guess, that we could be distracted from, multiple levels of idiocy, or it could be just pointing out the idiocy of the people that are supposedly running this country. I said to somebody only in an email over the weekend that we've got to remember this is a movie. And I do believe that, you know. I do believe that. I try not to get emotionally involved in anything dramatic that's happening in the world because I believe it's been engineered. I really believe it. I do believe this is a movie, and if I am proven wrong at some stage, then I will be embarrassed and I will admit it and eat a lot of humble pie. But until that time, all I can do is go with my gut, which is, I think, what a lot of you guys do, and be honest. I don't mince words now. I don't not have the conversation. I don't take the easier path when topics that we are following here, for instance, pop up that make other people feel uncomfortable. Pedophiles in our police forces, pedophiles in our parliament, protection for all from our judiciary. That can make a lot of people very, very uncomfortable very quickly. There are ways and means to bring them into the conversation, though, and don't get me wrong, they are conversations we have to bring them into. But there are plenty of other ones too. Climate crying. Well, I'm going to stop calling it climate crying, I think, because now it's climate crime. That's all it is, climate crime. Now, if you're not a Substack member, I would highly recommend that you go and check it out. It doesn't cost anything to join Substack, and you can get stuff delivered to you on a daily basis from people who, for the most part, at least the ones I'm subscribed to, seem to have some professional qualifications at the very least. Now, this is a very interesting article written here by Kate Mason about the New South Wales State Disaster Mitigation Plan. It's a Managed Retreat New South Wales Australia plan, it's called. It's front and centre in the New South Wales State Government Mitigation Disaster Plan, and it was only released the other day. The article will cover what's being proposed under the Disaster Mitigation Plan, etc., etc. That there I have copied. I'll just copy again, and I will paste into the chat now. But if it doesn't matter what state you are in, I would highly recommend that you go and have a look at that, because this is the plan, right? This is what their great land grab is going to come under. And they're not going to call it a land grab. They're calling it a managed retreat. A managed retreat. What does a managed retreat mean? Some lovely, vomit sort of artwork there. A couple of pages of it, in fact, which is great. And an acknowledgement to country, which is also great. Whole heap of, appendix and associated other bits and pieces. Whole heap of justifications. But anyway, let's just cut to the bullshit and have a look at the executive summary, shall we? There are a few interesting bits in this. I don't know that I've highlighted them, I did highlight them, but I don't think they stayed highlighted by the look of it. So some interesting parts here. This part of the report exposes the different hazards that we have. A mix of floodplains, rainforests, hinterland, outback, bushfires, flooding are the two big things that are going to be unhelpful for us, but they've also incorporated earthquake. They supply lots of maps with circles and arrows and boxes and all that sort of stuff. Understanding disaster risk. I guess that's the kind of words you'd kind of expect from a government to push, wouldn't you? But it sounds a lot more like an insurance company to me. A lot more like insurance company language. Natural events can become hazards when there is a potential negative impact, such as a loss of life or economic or environmental damage. The disaster occurs when these natural hazard events significantly affect people, homes, livelihoods, and assets of value, and when the impacts of hazards exceeds a community's ability to avoid, cope, or recover from them. All right? Hazards exceed a community's ability to avoid, cope, or recover from them. Northern New South Wales, Northern Rivers, are you listening? Very closely. You are going to be amongst the first. All right? Disaster risk results from the combination of the hazard and the exposure, there's a surprise, and the vulnerability of people and assets to that hazard. That means if there's a fire, you are vulnerable to getting burnt from it if you are close to it. That's what that means. If you are vulnerable to flood and there is a river near you, you are vulnerable to it. It's a hazard. The river is no longer an asset to your property, to your land, to your area. It is now a hazard. There's often little we can do about the hazard itself, of course, because it's a bloody river. Disaster risk can be reduced by limiting the exposure of people, homes, and infrastructure to hazards, or increasing their resilience, making them less vulnerable. So let's start with the last bit first. Increasing their resilience, making them less vulnerable to disaster and impacts. All right. That bit means we might build you a levee if you've got flood problems. That means we might let a bit of bushfire mitigation burning happen around your little wooded tree-lined town, and that might be in a forestry area or something like that. That's what that means. They might, but limiting the exposure of people's homes and infrastructure to hazards, well, that means if you live near a river, if you live in an area that might be prone to a bushfire, may not have had a bushfire in 25 years, like the bushfires they quote here, but if you live in that sort of corridor, well, we've come up with a solution. Taking a multi-hazard approach in this risk assessment, we applied the standard metric used by the insurance industry. Have a think about that for a moment before you criticize why I'm skeptical of the insurance industry's figures and the financial markets figures. The average annual loss. And have a think about the average annual loss since 2019 in insurance terms. The fires, the floods, just in that time frame. I mean, if you've got the ability to look back and compare from previous years, 10, 20, 30 years ago, please do. I'd love to see those figures. Anyway, the average annual loss is defined as the expected or average cost of damage to property and infrastructure arising from all occurrences or probabilities of that hazard in any 1 year. So, what is the probability of there being a flood in the northern rivers? Well, do you introduce the chemtrailing argument now? The rain-making argument? Or when do you introduce that? But they're not going to talk about that. Not at all. These hazards, in addition to bushfire and heat waves, have historically presented the greatest risk for life and injury. As a result of this analysis, these hazards are the focus of the actions of the inaugural plan. God, we love this plan. The secondary impact is the indirect consequence of the hazard. That means not being near it and not getting burnt, but you might know somebody who was near it and got burnt, I guess. Ash washing into the water supply, that kind of thing. Well, that's all happened for how many years? We've managed to clean that up. Oh, that'll be one of those things they will be able to make you resilient for, maybe. Put big fans over the water catchment so the ash doesn't blow into it or whatever. The secondary impacts of natural hazards require further work for better integration into the risk assessment and to inform this plan's action going forward. That means we're going to make it up as we go along. Disaster impacts and costs. Well, they're predicting 9.9 million people by 2041. If Labor is still in by then, that'll be probably 29 million. The most growth expected in the urban centres, of course, because they're planning on washing the country ones away or burning them out of existence. Now, that won't mean that your smart city isn't going to cop an influx of new Australians. Oh, God, no. In fact, they'll have the nicest homes in the street. You can be guaranteed of it. Through the impact, and this is a bit I particularly like, through the impacts of climate change on all natural hazards. Well, they're not understood. But it is expected. We understand it enough to know that it's going to increase in frequency, duration, and severity of extreme weather events. Okay, so it's not fully understood, but you can expect it to increase. Get worse, is what you're saying. Really? Based on what information? Oh, the insurance companies, or the weather bureaus, or the freaking government. Jesus. Well, population growth and climate change individually affects New South Wales' future risk profile. The interplay between both can make them more acute. More people, more effect on climate, obviously. Climate change is increasing in severity and the frequency of natural hazards. Oh, they haven't cited anything there to actually back that up. I have no doubt they'll have a paid-for professor somewhere whose simple job is to put out the propaganda. But they haven't supplied it in this case. This is unbelievable. So, addressing disaster risk where required. You can have a look at all this yourself, but this particular bit I will read you. As a state, we've long been aware of the need to reduce exposure and vulnerability of people, assets to natural hazards. For example, through restricting development in areas of high risk. Okay? So they're going to now deem what is an area of high risk based on an insurance assessment. While many government initiatives are in place, there are ongoing challenges in delivering risk reduction interventions. No shit, Sherlock. Recent disasters have demonstrated that people and governments have difficulty in anticipating the scale and severity of events. Well, I think the people have got a pretty good idea when they see the waters rising up, first to their gate and then to their front door and then to their roof. They've got a pretty good idea of what's coming. And those same people understand that all the rain that made the river rise might be tied to those bastard planes that keep flying over their heads and leaving great white lines in the sky that, well, don't dissipate like a contrail would, but instead spread out, get thick, and bugger me dead, starts raining. Anyway, historically, over 90% of disaster-related investment has been spent on response and recovery rather than risk reduction. Right? 97% of disaster-related investment has been spent on response and recovery rather than risk reduction. Oh, that's going to change. That leaves the communities carrying the burden of the risk, because your shed that they put up for you after the last one flooded might get flooded again. You might need a new shed, and increases the likelihood of greater response from emergency services. Well, they're not going to come and help you with your shed or your fire if you're in an area where they want it to burn. It's been proven, shown time and time again in various countries around the world that the fire brigade are woefully inadequate, if not complicit, in some of these fires, and they're not normal fires. They're not started the normal way. Benefits can also be difficult to quantify as they're based on avoiding future costs and impacts. Well, we know it's going to get more expensive, don't we? Nonetheless, many benefits are enjoyed in the here and now, confident to invest in homes and businesses and the ability to obtain insurance at an affordable price. Remember that line, because now that all this is done by insurance, there is no way in hell, if you're living in any of the flood-affected areas of Lismore, and I suspect even some of them that aren't, you're going to be able to get insurance. No way. If you own that land, if you own that property, the government is going to have to buy it back from you, and that's what they're angling for in this document. One of the key tools to reduce risk is to change how and where we live through strategic land use planning. That means we've created this beautiful new smart town. It's only up the road a bit. You'll never get flooded out again. We'll give you that house and some money. All right? We'll give you all this big amount of money for your house and land if you buy that house we're offering you in our new smart city for price X. You won't owe any money. You'll still have a little bit left over. Be able to buy a new car that also won't be flood damaged to stick in the driveway. Or would you prefer to stay where you've been all your life? Stay on your land. Look after your farm. Look after your property. Raise your kids, your grandkids. It's going to be a question you're going to need to deal with soon. Effective risk reduction, particularly changes to the strategic land use planning, requires a high degree of collaboration between all stakeholders. And difficult decisions may need to be made, they say. These include managing the competing priorities and values attached to growth, housing supply, equity, and environmental and social impacts. It requires open and collaborative conversations between those who benefit and those affected by the different options, including community members, all levels of government, insurance and banking industries, and private business. Now, insurance, government, and banking industries, you can basically put them all into one basket. What numbers are they going to be working off? Well, they're going to be working off the insurance company's numbers, aren't they? So if you wanted to buy some of that land that floods, but you plan on building a tree house and a tree shed to park your tractor in, what's it their business if that's what you want to do? they're not going to let you buy it because they will have zoned it out for their use. Be interesting to see how that works. Our history of disasters means that we have a strong knowledge base to build on. That's insurance speak for saying we know how much it's cost us in the past. We know how much we bleed you every year now, and we're evaluating how much more we can get out of you in the future and force it out of you, because we're going to move you out of that house we're not going to insure anymore, but we'll insure the new one that we push you into in the smart city, the 15-minute smart city. They have a high level of expertise in their emergency management sector. I'm not at all surprised. Aboriginal stewardship practices to draw upon. A focus on climate variability, change and adaptation. A mature experience in managing some of our most significant hazards, like bushfire, storm and floods. Sorry. Hang on a minute. If you've been managing this, wouldn't we be doing a lot more than we have in the last 10 years? Seriously, farmers can't get permits to burn off. Property owners can't get permits to burn off. The Gold Coast hinterland, thank God it is so wet. And maybe that's who we should be thanking, God. Or whoever's spraying the agent that makes it rain. Because without that rain, areas, well, I would say the entire Gold Coast hinterland, probably the entire Sunshine Coast hinterland, if not the entire Great Dividing Range, could be ablaze. I know it sounds a bit far-fetched, but when you're setting fires off by things that are floating around above us, rather than the normal means of cigarettes or matches, anything's possible. And of course, going back to chemtrailing, we know that they've been dropping shit on us, aluminium, barium, and other things. We know because we've got heaps of it. It's being captured on a daily basis. Fairly coarse dirt. Someone wrote me an email about, only today I received another email of, calling it coarse dirt. Requiring the need to use the wipers every day before you go out on the road. Yep, that's what it is. Scrape it off, and we are looking to get it tested, trying to find some way to get it tested. But if you are scraping it off, videotape yourself doing it. Try and make it one continuous video. Try and scrape it all onto a white piece of paper or something. Seal it in a jar, and then seal that jar with a bit of gaffer or something. So that it can't be contaminated. And that way you're showing people that you got it clean off your car. They'll say, oh, well, the car contaminated. It could have been dust on it from the day before or whatever. Well, not everybody washes their cars every day, but if you are one of those people and you do happen to get some of this on there, then you can say, well, my car was washed perfectly and that's what came off it. So maybe just a thought for that. This, I commend to you going and having a read if you are in New South Wales, but all states, right? This is the toolkit they are going to use to take your land. So tools to reduce vulnerability. These are not tools, these are the assessment points. Building codes and standards. Is your building up to code? Now, they'll change those codes so that if your building got flooded last time, it'll have to be built on 10-foot stilts this time. And if you're prepared to build it there, well, they might be prepared to go forward with it. Community awareness and preparedness. Well, I don't know how the communities like Lismore could be much more prepared for the floods when the river breaks its banks. Home modifications, yes, by all means. I don't know too many homeowners who stay in flood-affected areas who don't try and modify their home in some way, shape, or form. And when it comes to bushfires, I know many people who have sprinkler systems that are plumbed to the roof of their homes and other outbuildings in some cases. These are not hoses, rubber hoses. They are piped and can be run from a pump and a generator, and have their own water supply fed from the water captured off the roofs of all the outbuildings. I'm not saying every property has that sort of fire mitigation, but that particular property is in Victoria, and it is right on the edge of a state forest that could very easily go up in smoke. Because there's a lot of four-wheel driving and stuff that goes on through there, all sorts of reasons why there could be a fire. Nature-based measures. What can they do using nature to help your situation? In the case of bushfire, put out the permits. Allow the brigades to go out and do mitigation burning during the winter when it's not dry, you idiots. But now they know that, of course. They've stopped doing that to create the problem they are now supplying the solution for. Are you seeing how? Social infrastructure and cohesion. Oh, yes. Well, if your house is getting flooded every couple of years and your main street's flooded and people are dying, that's not good for social cohesion. People will be feeling that every time they walk down the streets. And social infrastructure, well, God, we've all got to replace the kids' bloody playgrounds again because they'll be all contaminated because the river water went through them and we haven't got anybody smart enough or, healthy enough or fit enough to clean them. Sure, a few things might be damaged, I understand, but anyway. All excuses they will be easily able to walk away from that will take you to the top of our illustrious plan here, the tools to reduce exposure. Well, evacuation is a bloody good one, don't you think? That'll get you right out of the way. But that's the last info. That's the last one. Warning systems. So, increased warning systems. Okay, where do we start? Do we put a warning out where we see multiple aircraft? Do we put a warning when we see multiple chemtrails, not only just over our area, but over, let's talk Northern Rivers, from south of the Northern Rivers, south of Coffs to Cairns or north of Cairns? Along the coast and inland, where there are multiple small aircraft flying around, surveying ostensibly. That's what they say, but I don't think that that's actually what they're doing. And in fact, somebody sent me a picture. I don't know if I've uploaded it. See if I've got it in here to upload. I'm gathering it's a PNG file. Give me a second. I'll see if I can find it. Somebody sent me a great picture of a very funny aircraft that was flying around Harvey Bay over the weekend. Now, it had what looked to be a spine, quite a large spine, along the middle of its back to its tail. It looked to me like it was a little jet or possibly a large turboprop. I haven't got the image here to show you, unfortunately. So I'm guessing that is a radar that was on the back of that aircraft. It could also have something else to do with what we're talking about, chemtrailing, but it's more than likely a radar. We do have a couple of military aircraft that do have those here. They're Hawkeyes, I think they're calling them. But that wasn't a Hawkeye jet. That was something much smaller and had a different shaped nose to a point where it could have been a prop aircraft, a turboprop aircraft. But the picture's very unclear because the thing was flying at over 10,000 feet. Not at 20, but more than 10. So it was taken off a phone and I've zoomed it in as best I can, but there's a lot of detail that gets lost. So anyway, a bit of that floating around. Strategic planning, see that third word? Controls. That's something that you should be very aware of if you're in an area that has been through a bushfire since 2019 or a flood, or has suffered any other natural disaster. Strategic planning controls. That means we're not going to give you, we're going to strategically plan you out of where you're at, because we're going to control what infrastructure we're going to allow into that area. That's the government telling you that, the New South Wales government. Mitigation infrastructure. Yes, we could build the walls a bit higher, but then if you build the walls a bit higher through Lismore, where's the water going to go? It doesn't just disappear, it just gets pushed away. I'll give you an example. The highway between the Gold Coast and Sydney, or let's just say south of Ballina, they built this whole new beautiful bypass. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But when there are flood events now, whole new areas go under. Why? Well, because somebody didn't build the bloody road high enough or put enough bridges in it to let the water escape when the big water comes out of that river in Lismore. I want to say it's the Clarence, but I might be wrong. The Clarence is down that way too. Iluka cops a bit of a flood fairly regularly. So I understand mitigating the floodwater is probably difficult because there's so much of it, and you've screwed up where it could go now anyway. Because that highway it lets a little bit of it go through, but it creates a log jam and the water backs up. And all of a sudden, in the last floods, as we saw, whole new areas that have never been flooded before went under. What does that mean to what we're talking about here? Your insurance assessor now assesses you as a flood area. You're in a flood risk area. I nearly said something else. You're in a flood risk area. But they can help you with managed relocation. Doesn't that sound nice? It's almost like, the euthanasia rooms at the hospital. We're going to manage your relocation to heaven. And smile. That's what it sounds like. Your managed relocation will be an offer to move to a smart city, a smart 15-minute city. The offer will include a house, maybe the size that you are already in, possibly smaller, unlikely to be much bigger unless you can show a reason for it to be. It won't have everything that you have now because you won't need it, because it's a smart city you're moving to. And who knows, there could be a robot mowing your lawns. You won't have to worry about it ever again. But we're only going to give you 2 and 6 for your property because, it's going to flood. It's not worth anything. Insurance people say so. Till those planes stop flying, till the rain events stop happening. When I say rain events, I'm talking about events that keep huge storms, capable of delivering hundreds of millimeters per hour over big areas. When they keep those storms bouncing between their little Harper rays, and those storms stretch from Cairns to the southeast corner, the Northern Rivers is going to get wet. They're going to start talking about the Brisbane catchment filling up. There is a chance Brisbane will go underwater again. What's going to happen with your properties along there? No need to worry about that. They're going to reclaim all your properties in Brisbane along the river there. Do a little bit of that mitigation infrastructure work so they don't have to move Suncorp Stadium and might be able to keep it dry. They don't have to move South Bank. They don't have to move the new casino or Parliament on the other side of the river. But that flood mitigation work, that'll have to happen out, where you live, on your property. But don't worry, beautiful 15-minute city for you to be evacuated to. Now, I get the feeling that the evacuation infrastructure is more along the lines of police turning up in padded protection and dragging you off your property. I could be wrong, but this is a document you really want to go and have a look at. Enablers for successful risk reduction. To successfully support and guide disaster risk reduction, you can read it. The bullshit and the lies, the excuses in this document that they put down to climate change is phenomenal. The managed relocation is a nice one to read. Develop a state policy for large-scale multi-hazard managed relocation, drawing on the experience of the Northern Rivers and other jurisdictions to decide the appropriateness of this response in disaster adaptation planning, which includes mechanisms to identify criteria for areas where risks are not tolerable. So it's intolerable. The government will decide what you can tolerate, right? That's what this is saying. We will decide what is tolerable. Guidelines to allow strong community involvement and decision-making pre-disaster and post-disaster, like we don't have those now. Funding principles between governments, councils, households, and businesses. Well, we know that the governments are getting their information, and the banks, for that matter, who will help supply the funding, are getting all their information from the insurance companies, who are going to advise governments and councils that no households can be built or nothing should be built, no business in that area. Principles for communicating and publishing risk information. That'll be, we'll tell you what we think when we think you need to know it. Implementation of alternative productive uses for reclaimed open space. So we've already decided that your land is unusable, but we've got some uses for it. Look, such as agriculture, which will get washed away. Nature-based mitigation measures. Yeah, we're going to build those, widen those riverbanks, remember? Yeah. Relocation of critical infrastructure and government assets. Well, we're not moving the new casino we just built in Queensland, so the river's going to have to move. This is a very, very dangerous piece of documentation, folks. If you live anywhere in an area affected by natural disasters on anything that the government terms a regular basis, and based on the insurance business, that could be just about everywhere, I would have thought. You can't build a 2-story home because there's a lot of lightning goes on in your area. We know that because there's a lot of fires. We don't let people build around trees anymore. I got to be honest. It's a nanny state. It's a nanny state. And every one of us is going to be living in a nanny state if we let it happen. How does it happen? We let nannies get elected to local government, and then we elect ninnies to state government, and then we elect lying, corrupt, or corruptible people to our federal parliament who do nothing. And the good ones who do get there aren't allowed to do anything good. And if they're not prepared to be corrupted, to join the team, well, they don't get a Guernsey on the team. They're sat in the corner and told to shut up, say nothing, take your money, and be a good little pleb, because you're not playing the party line. We have to end the parties, folks. Darren Bergwerf is fighting for it in Victoria this weekend at the ballot box in Dunkley. Go and vote for him. A vote for Darren is certainly not a vote for Labor or Liberal. In fact, Labor preferenced him last. No, Liberal preferenced him last. Labor put him second last. It's been quite funny. And that preference system, you got to be careful of that with your local government votes too here in Queensland, folks. Remember that. Preferential voting, bastard of a thing. I will get around to this local government expose. I've shown some of the video I was planning on showing you to a legal eagle, and he tells me I might not want to show all of what I've got, certain parts of it, but I might not want to show all of it for legal reasons. So I'm going to do a bit more editing. We'll get that one out. But the local council election's happening in Queensland, I think, at 2 or maybe even 3 weeks away yet. unless I'm completely mistaken, and they're happening this Saturday as well. At any rate, Darren for Dunkley. Go and vote 1 for Darren Bergwerf. And if you are able to access Sky News tonight, what time are we now? It's 9:15. I would say stop watching me, go and watch Bergwerf. He's on Paul Murray tonight. I want to say it starts at 9 o'clock. I could be wrong. If you're driving and need to get home to watch that, make sure you steer clear of the dickheads on the road. Love you, folks. Thanks for your input. And if you can help us, please go to vofhq.com and make a donation there, or better still, become a member. Got some exciting things coming up for that one too. Looking forward to telling you about in the not too distant future. Be safe. Steer clear of the dickheads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!